You are listening to the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com, and we are coming to you once again live from the 2014 PMI Global Congress in Phoenix, Arizona. And with me, and for the third time here on the podcast, is Brian Irwin. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Cornelius. Good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you. Your topic is Agile Transformation, Secrets from an Ancient Greek. Before we jump into your presentation, a quick question. How much effort was it for you to prepare this Congress presentation and the white paper you had to write for it as well?
So the paper itself was not actually too bad to pull together. I really like that there's some conferences that you go to that do not require a paper. I really like that this one does because it forces you to work through your thoughts and what you want to convey. So it gets you thinking about the presentation actually a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. And how much effort would you say it was for you in total hours?
Oh, total hours. To get the first draft out, probably half a day.
Half a day. Okay, and then you had to do the presentation. So we're probably talking about 2 days worth of work in total?
Probably in total, yeah.
So you've given the presentation yesterday, I believe, right?
I gave it this morning at 11:30.
Okay. So was it worth it? Was it worth the 2 days of effort you put into this?
Yes. Anytime I get to speak in front of people, it's awesome.
All right. Agile Transformation, Secrets from an Ancient Greek. Who is the Greek?
So the Greek, it should probably come as no surprise, is Socrates. And it's based on using Socratic questioning to bring forth underlying beliefs and values of individuals so that we can get them surfaced and hopefully help individuals understand why they think the things that they think. So if I had to say this presentation was about one thing, it would be about facilitated critical thinking.
All right. And why is this topic important to our listeners? What are they going to learn from our conversation?
Well, the crux of what I speak about in the presentation was that when we start going through agile transformations at an organizational level, it's real easy, and the easy answer is to bring in training. Bring in training, bring in coaching, and that's a great first start, and it's absolutely needed. But then we thrust the people that are in the training back out into the organization, which may not be designed or have a culture that to support work getting done in an agile manner. So what these people need to be given are new experiences that support new beliefs and new ways of working, which will drive new actions and behaviors leading to results from Agile.
All right. Underlying one of the underlying concepts of your presentation is really organizational change. So please help us understand Agile organizational change.
Yeah, so Agile organizational change is not too much unlike or the other organizational change. Organizational change, more than simply process and structure redesign, you're really talking about a new way of doing things and a new philosophy and a new culture. So there are organizations out there that really do Agile well, but if you look closely at them, they don't do really hardcore Scrum or XP or Kanban, typical Agile methodologies. You can be Agile and basically when I say that, I mean respond to change well, pivot to different directions, and still not do all of any one methodology. If you have an Agile mindset and an Agile philosophy and culture, you can, which I've seen many organizations do, you can have all of the right ingredients in place, do all of the Scrum meetings, have all of the roles, all of the artifacts, project burn-ups, burn-downs, sprint review meetings, retrospectives, and not be any more agile than the typical traditional waterfall company. So it's really about changing and instilling a culture of continuous learning, fast feedback, and really looking at the team level delivery of value to the customer.
Okay. Whenever we talk about transformation, we have to talk about pushback because it'll inevitably happen. So what are some barriers to agile transformation?
Oh, Where do I start?
The usual suspects?
Oh, yeah. There are barriers from everywhere for agile transformation. So one of the biggest barriers that I see is just people not understanding or realizing what's in it for them or why they're even going through it, right? A lot of times an agile transformation is initiated. It can be initiated from the top, and it comes through as a mandate. And I like to say that change isn't necessarily what's the problem here. It's potentially change that is thrust upon us that is not of our choosing. That's one area of agile adoption blockers. Another one is the unwillingness to dedicate people to teams and still take an approach of resource allocation across many projects. So, and that's one of my pet peeves, by the way. It's human resources. It's people. I like that. Although I may be a cog in a machine, I don't like to be referred to that way. It's really individuals. It's people, right? So having teams focus on work instead of individuals allocated by skill set across projects is a big barrier.
So then what is a better approach?
So a better approach is what we need to do is give these people different experiences, and we need to help them understand their thinking and why they think the things that they do, why they hold the beliefs and values that they do. And I think one of the primary considerations here is it's very difficult. So there's no easy answer, right? And this is why agile adoptions are so difficult, because it deals with people. And when theoretical, practices hit the people element, that's where things start to break down, where pragmatism comes into play. And what I found early on is that if you're able to help people identify why they think the things that they do, then it can help everyone. And one way of doing that is in fact, I think one of the only ways to do that is by becoming empathetic and really having a curiosity for people and not necessarily trying to overtly change what they're doing, but through a series of many interactions, ask questions that probe their thinking, that bring their ideologies to light and cause them to think critically about it. And if their rationale is good, it can stand up to these questions. But over time, it allows them they may not even think about the answers to the questions as you're having a discussion, but subconsciously, it may work on them in the background over a long period of time.
All right, that's a great segue because it brings us back to the ancient Greek and the Socratic questioning. So let's take a look at the 5 types of these Socratic questions, and maybe you can also give us, an example for each and tell us more about how they would be used.
Sure. So as I mentioned in the paper, there are 5 types of Socratic questions, and really I don't want to say they're really designed, but they're just 5 different categories of questions that help guide critical thinking. And one of them is conceptual clarification. And what conceptual clarification would do, it would do exactly what the name says. It would be a question that would clarify in your mind what someone was asking about the question. So, in other words, one would be, can you explain that further?
That's a relatively simple question. It goes all the way back to Socrates.
Absolutely. Relatively simple question. And I should point out, too, that there's something out there known as the 5 whys of asking why repeatedly.
Right.
And it takes about 5 times to get to the root cause of something. This is not that. This is different than the 5 whys. And I've found through experience that when you try to implement the 5 whys, it takes about 3 whys.
Before people start hurting you with a baseball bat.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And what this really is, it's more not just about asking questions all the time. It's about having a discussion and planting the questions in there as you see fit. And one question can bring up another question. And really, as a questioner, you have to go into this with the mindset that it could go any way. So letting the conversation go where it needs to go. Another type would be probing assumptions. So the project management, right, we all have these assumptions that we need to validate, right? It's part of the project management process. No different here. So this would be questions that probe your assumptions and your thinking around those assumptions. So example would be, you seem to be assuming, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? So you're asking for clarification. Do you think that's always the case? What makes you think so? Can you think of something that may invalidate that? So it's helping the individual think critically about their assumptions. Another one, probing rationale or reasoning. So why do you think that is true? Would be another one. How do you know? And the answer, what's the answer to that one, do you think? How do you know? It's usually because I just know.
Yeah.
I know.
I know. I'm the expert.
Right.
That's why.
It's written in the stars, Also, we have clarifying viewpoints, and this is a real simple one. It's nothing more than asking the person you're talking with to clarify what they said. So are you saying that it's kind of that would be an example of parroting back something that they had said.
Right.
Can you state that another way so that they have to think about it again and state what they just said in a different way? Finally, there's probing implications and consequences. This is my favorite one because so often human beings, we are a fascinating animal, and I love observing human behavior, and we oftentimes do things without consideration of consequences and their implications on other things. So some of these would be along the lines of, what would be the impact or result of that action or whatever we're talking about? If that is the case, what else might be true? So you're trying to get them to think, and you're actually trying to think too, and you're using curiosity to find out what the implication of something may be.
Mm-hmm. Now, these 5 types of questions, they seem pretty straightforward, and they seem applicable to many areas. But in your particular case, you're talking about agile transformation secrets. Why did you particularly focus on agile transformation with these 5 question types? Because I could see these work pretty well in requirements elicitation as well.
Oh, they absolutely do. And they're applicable to much more than agile transformations. However, agile transformations and culture is kind of the world I live in.
Right.
So it's taking something that's common and applicable to many things and applying it to something we may not think about.
You say this is the area you live in, so you use these on a regular basis? You use this approach on a regular basis?
So part of what I do as an agile coach and consultant for version 1 is help organizations do transformation, and a lot of that involves training, and I can get individuals in training classes that ask questions. And if I could break this down really quickly and succinctly to summarize what this would be, I kind of think of this, and this isn't to denigrate anything, but I think of this almost like being a good parent, being a good agile coach. And what I mean by that is I have a 12-year-old and 9-year-old boys. And when they come to me with a question for their homework, the easy thing for me to do is give them the answer, right? And that's what they want. They're looking for the answer. I don't want that. I can give them the answer very easily. My job is as a parent, is to get them to be able to think on their own and to not need anyone to do the thinking for them. That's my goal for using these questions in agile cultural changes, to help individuals learn how to think about their own problems so that they can implement solutions that work in their specific context. Because everything is, the consultant answer, right, is it depends. Because it really does. It depends on the context and the situation and, but what I would typically do is ask a question back to the questioner if I had something that would help bring to light what an answer might be.
What kind of feedback do you get from people when you do that?
It's good, because what it does is it helps them think, and they arrive at the solution themselves, and you can own a solution much better if you arrive at it yourself. It can be kind of ego inflating for them.
And probably for you as well, because you suddenly see, oh, there's a light bulb that just went off over that head.
That light bulb moment is what I live for.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So, if you had to summarize this, how can Socratic questioning help us in agile transformation?
All right. So Agile is about, if we think about the manifesto, the first line of the paired values is individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
Mm-hmm.
And an Agile culture reeks of individuals and interactions. Socratic questioning is all about individuals and interactions and building relationships and discovering something out about other people through curiosity and empathy. And if you can do that, you can be very successful over the long term in Agile adoptions, both at the team level and at higher levels within the organization.
You said at the beginning that the paper that you wrote for the Congress here really helped you think about the presentation that you were going to give. So let me ask you this. What was the one thing you wanted the attendees of your presentation to walk away with? Something that our listeners can also walk away with from our conversation.
Right. So you're not going to walk away from a presentation like this being an expert in Socratic questioning. But what you can walk away with is a curiosity for others and a willingness to take on a new approach. So the last exercise that I did with my participants, and they were all very good and participative and engaged, it was really fun, is I had them work in pairs over about a 3-minute time box to come up with their own personal manifestos of how they could apply the method in their own work. So a couple of mine were listen with empathy, connect with vulnerability. So it's through small statements like that that you can pull yourself back and really become a better person, if you will, as well as, a better agilist. So I encourage them to take these, post them on their monitors or their cube walls or wherever it is that they work, so that when they get into those discussions and they can become heated or emotional or, you start getting a big self-interest in the discussion and the conversation, look at that manifesto and use it to pull yourself back.
Excellent. Brian, thank you very much for your time.
Outstanding. As always, it was fun. Thanks, Cornelius.